Hello to everyone in my US 102 online classes. I know that my last announcements had to deal with late work. I do want to briefly say something about this and have so I work from home today. Sunday, and I'll be working Monday from home. And that means I'm going to have time to help out any of you. I'm probably going to set up some online Zoom office hours later today. I'll give you a heads up. I might even be able to do that some tomorrow. I will make my phone number available. If you think that your grade is not fair, let's talk. Now, if you have a bad grade because you slacked and you're wanting to make up a lot of extra work now, that's not what I'm able to do. It's not that I don't want to. I can't. I'm running. I have three classes, so I just want to remind you, three classes, and I work full time at another job, and so but still, in any case, I still let's talk. So if you have an issue, if you're uncomfortable with anything in your academic life, these next 2 days in particular are really good times to get a hold of me. I'm going to work 5 days straight in a row doing physical work at another job while I have to get grades in for a late start class that finishes this week. So I'll do my best though to get back a hold of you. But right now, if you need me to help out with anything, these 2 days are the right ones to do it. Okay. Um, and write to me directly in Canvas. Also, sometimes folks are writing to me in the comment section of the grading, and I'm not necessarily going to see that unless I'm grading that. So just, yeah, write to me directly. Okay. All right. So we're finishing up here on quite a bit of material. I expect a lot of this to be a little bit confusing to many of you, but I talk about in my summary. So this announcement is kind of linked with my summary at the end. And I want to say that also my summary could have been better. I still didn't even talk about the Russia-Ukraine war, which I incorporated in there, which absolutely must be incorporated. And I didn't actually get to go on that because I talk so much kind of about the importance of the Israel-Palestine conflict, which I highlight. But I also give a different perspective on the Ukraine-Russia war with the United States and NATO in one of the videos as well. Jeffrey Sachs, I think, is a very well-respected economist that once you recognize him, you'll see him, he's all over the place, but he's very much a contrarian. And this week is about me throwing out contrarian perspectives for you on very sensitive topics. And the most sensitive topic being the Israel-Palestine conflict. So why I want you to listen to this very carefully first, because it is so controversial. It generates a lot of anger, upset emotions, accusations. What are people's motives for even getting involved in this discussion? It's very important that you listen to me on this, please, because all of my students come from different backgrounds, and my family comes from different backgrounds. I wouldn't want anybody to feel uncomfortable, to feel like anyone's under attack. But there is wars happening. There's a conflicts. There's occupations. There are people being attacked. So when I'm discussing that, I'm not saying I want other people attacked. I'm saying I'm making a critique, and I'm making one based on a certain bias. So let me talk about this bias. Okay. So about 28 years ago, maybe 27 years ago, I have a mentor. He has a PhD in history himself. He lived a very interesting life. Haven't seen him much lately. He's got a lot of health problems and is older. But he's a white Jewish man that grew up in Florida. And he grew up there during the time of segregation. Okay. And as a kid, he was really disturbed by what he saw with segregation of whites and blacks not having the same drinking fountains and all of that. And so he rebelled quite early, and that getting himself in trouble in school, upsetting other students, that he was really just disgusted with racism and segregation. But now he grew up in uh, a Jewish household that was also very pro-Israel. Seemed very natural to him. And he ends up falling in love with a Palestinian woman. He's never actually given me much details on this. This has always been this kind of mysterious part of the story that just kind of like starts there and ends there. But he was basically challenged, well, do you know what our side of the story is? Do you know how we feel? You know, that kind of thing. So he traveled to Israel, and he went to Israel and the West Bank. And now he did this. Now, keep in mind, he's telling me this story 27 years ago, and he went decades ago, prior. So this was some time ago that he did this. And he said that he was thoroughly shocked and appalled by what he saw in terms of the treatment of Palestinians, and that he was just disgusted with the way that Israel handled everything in regards to that. And he said a lot of things that information about this that I was a little bit kind of blown away by, I guess. I just was hanging out with I just went to a Shabbat, a Sabbath dinner at some Jewish friend's house. I'm saying to myself, I don't know what's he saying here. And then he introduced me to some other Jewish political activists that were also critical of Israel's policies. And he took me down this path to just challenge me to study all these things and expose me. And I went to a lot of debates, a lot of lectures on these things. And I've read over 20 books now on the Israel-Palestine conflict. In college, I wrote a lot of essays on the origins of the state, on Zionism, which is the political ideology that helped create the state of Israel. I wrote one on a man named Rabbi Meir Kahane, who was considered a terrorist by the FBI, and he was banned from Israel for being a racist in the 80s by the conservatives in Israel, and now is one of the main influences of the current Israeli government. In fact, if you look at Otzma Yehudit, that's a Jewish Strength Party, on their website in English, there's a picture of Rabbi Meir Kahane on there, and the man Ben Gvir, who's the head of national security in Israel, was a major friend with Rabbi Meir Kahane. Anyhow, I learned a lot about this, and it drew me to this conclusion as well, that the bias that we get in the United States on the Israel-Palestine conflict is so extreme that the bias that I'm going to share just balances out. You're just getting, some of you are going to get your first time exposure to just the Palestinian perspective, or a critique of Israel's handling, or how they even do things. You'll see in news clips that there's these things will pop up in the media from time to time, but there's never like a fully comprehensive understanding of what's going on here. Now, this is not my World Civ class. In my World Civ class, I do a very thorough explanation of the beginning and end of the Israel-Palestine conflict. But I don't have time for that, and that's not appropriate to this. What I'm mainly trying to show you, and what I want to articulate, is that there is no conflict that the United States is more embedded in than the Israel-Palestine conflict, and culturally so. And look, I want to say most of my students, like most of my family members, maybe something similar to some of my own backgrounds of different exposures, come out of churches that are defined as Christian Zionists. That there's actually, I think one organization has 10 million members, larger than the amount of people that live in Israel itself. So Americans, we have a cultural link to Israel. There's a reason why it's the #1 military aid recipient of the US government. But that is also being challenged a lot by people now. And then there's the issue of anti-Semitism. So I just want to briefly say something about that. I am against anti-Semitism. Absolutely. I'm against racism against Arabs, racism against Mexicans, racism against whites, racism against anybody. You know, the whole entire reason why I want you all to understand this is that I don't think that we're going to get into a better place with where we're at unless we actually have an honest look at what we're seeing. And everybody historically has a chance at being on the wrong side of history. Okay, no matter what the past was or is. And also, two things can happen at the same time. There can be somebody who just hates somebody because of who they are. So let's say anti-Semitic. They just hate a Jewish person just for being Jewish. They have some conspiracy theory about their DNA or some terrible weird thing. Okay, that can be true, and simultaneously someone can make a real critique of what's happening in Israel. Now, by the way, again, this is not me having a critique of Jewish people. It's about Israel. And as you see in the videos, I have Israeli sources that go into these topics that I'm talking about to show you that it's not simply an us versus them dialogue. Just like my mentor, he's a Jewish man who took the time to research and see a different perspective. Okay? And so that's what I'm trying to bring to the table here. Now, I am going to be really busy, and it's going to be tough. This is going to be a tough week for me to be available after Wednesday. But I do hope that if some of you get to look over some of what I cover, and you feel like that you want to have a serious engagement with the topic, that I'm more than happy to do that, even if it's a phone conversation where it's a little easier to communicate and to be respectful towards each other's and our opinions on this, and kind of like, discuss some of the things there. So that's what I mainly wanted to kind of draw attention to, because on college campuses in particular, this people are getting fired over this their opinions on this conflict. Students are getting kicked out. Foreigners are getting deported over their opinions on this conflict. This conflict is huge, and it, as I mentioned in the summary at the end, it's very much linked to U.S. foreign policy in the Middle East and where we're at currently with the Iran war. And I wish I had time to go over more of that. But as I mentioned in my summary at the end, there's too much going on, and things are changing rapidly. But I can tell you this right now: the Israel-Palestine conflict and its link with the United States is going to be front and center of the discussion of the war in Iran, and it's not going to go away. And so the more you can inform yourself on this and get, going on it, this for the better. So again, I'm kind of saying some things that I actually mentioned at the end of my summary. But last thing, then I want to kind of just diverge away again and talk about the Ukraine-Russia war. I mean, here's something that I think is really important. We're at a critical time. One could argue in a sense that the Ukraine-Russia war is already a sort of light version of World War III, because it's a superpower coming in, and then the United States and the rest of Europe funding one side, and this thing that's been entrenched for a long time, and it still keeps going. And now we have another conflict where the United States and Israel decided to attack Iran, that didn't attack either Israel or United States, based on a theory that they would, which is kind of similar to what Bush did to Iraq. And now this affects China and India and the global economy. It affects the world, and it's disrupting everything around the world. So now we're really extending again into a World War III type of situation. And so the more you have an understanding of the background of what's going on in all these things, thinking about it, it's going to be helpful, but it's frustrating, I will say. Because for those of us in the know and we're seeing this, it's like, and it's hard to see as many Americans just kind of go about their lives, which it's fine. We got to try and enjoy our lives still, but there's a lot going on. And so this is an important way to end the semester. It's an important way for you to kind of orient you to how to think. So I'm just going to leave it there. And I hope you all have a good week. And like I said, please reach out to me for anything that you need.